What would you do? I want you to imagine this for a second. If the person you loved most looked you in the eye and asked for permission to fall in love with someone else. That's what happened to me. One night, standing in my kitchen with a mug of tea in my hands, my husband asked for an open marriage. He thought he was giving himself more freedom. He didn't know he was giving me the upper hand. Before I tell you how it all unfolded, and trust me, you'll want to hear the ending, take a second to drop in the comments where you're watching from. I love knowing where our Flame and Fate family is tuning in from, and if you're new here, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next twist-filled story. I was standing in our kitchen, holding a mug of chamomile tea, steam curling up between us. It was a Tuesday night, the kind of night when the world outside feels quiet and safe. Except my world wasn't safe anymore. "Clara," James said, leaning against the counter, his hands shoved into the pockets of his sweatpants like he was asking me something casual, like what's for dinner, not about to throw a grenade into our marriage. "I think we should have an open marriage." I froze. My mind blanked, the hum of the refrigerator suddenly deafening. I'm Clara Evans, 33 years old, marketing director at a boutique travel agency, married for 7 years to the man who used to bring me coffee in bed and kiss my forehead before work. We built a life together, the house, the vacations, the plans for kids someday. And now, this. An open marriage? I repeated, my voice a brittle whisper. James shifted uncomfortably. Yeah, I mean, things have been a little stale lately, and I just think maybe seeing other people could help us, keep things exciting. You know that feeling when your heart sinks so fast you swear you can hear it? I felt that. I also felt the sharp stab of humiliation, because this wasn't about keeping things exciting. This was about him wanting the freedom to have someone else while keeping me safely at home. I looked at him, really looked at him, the man I'd trusted, defended, and loved fiercely. "So, you want permission to sleep with other women?" I asked, forcing my voice to stay even. He hesitated, then nodded. "It's not just about sex, Clara, it's about connection, adventure." "Adventure," I cut in, setting my mug down with a dull thud. "Right, because nothing says romance like trading your wife in for a weekend thrill." My words hit him, but he didn't back down. "Look, I've done a lot of thinking. I don't want to wake up in 10 years regretting that I never explored." For a long moment, I didn't speak. I could have screamed, cried, thrown something. But instead, I smiled. A small, sharp smile that made him frown. "Okay," I said softly. His eyebrows shot up. "Okay." "Yes," I said, picking up my tea again. "If that's what you want, James, I'll agree to an open marriage. But you'd better be prepared for what I do with that freedom." I watched his Adam's apple bob as he swallowed. Because here's the thing. When a man asks for an open marriage, he imagines himself being chased, adored, spoiled. He never imagines his wife will be the one men want more. And that's exactly what was about to happen. The next morning, I drafted the rules of our new arrangement. Rules I intended to follow to the letter, and maybe bend just enough to break his pride. The next morning, James acted like nothing happened, whistling while he made coffee, scrolling through his phone at the counter. I, however, had spent the entire night staring at the ceiling, the blue glow of the alarm clock ticking away my anger. By the time sunlight spilled through the blinds, I'd made a decision. If he wanted this open marriage, I would give it to him, but on terms that worked for me. "Morning," he said, handing me my mug. I accepted it without looking up from my laptop. "We need rules." He blinked. "Rules?" "Yes," I said, typing quickly. "We can't just open the door and let chaos in. If we're doing this, we're doing it right." James raised an eyebrow, half amused, half nervous. "Okay. Like what?" I turned the laptop so he could see. Clara's open marriage rules. 1. Full transparency. No lying about where you are or who you're with. 2. Health first. Protection is non-negotiable. 3. No friends, no coworkers. Keep our social and professional circles intact. 4. Privacy in the home. No bringing anyone here. And 5. Equal opportunity. If you're seeing someone, I have the right to see someone too. James scanned the list, lips pressing together. Seems fair, he said slowly. Good, I replied. And one more thing. I leaned back in my chair, letting my eyes meet his with deliberate calm. If you ever want to stop this, you can. But if you do, you're agreeing to stop for both of us. That made him pause. Both? Yes, I said lightly, stirring my coffee. You don't get to slam the door on my freedom after you've had your fun. We're in or we're out, together. He chuckled, shaking his head. I'm not worried. I know you. You're not the type to really explore like that. I smiled into my mug. Oh, James. That was his first mistake. Underestimating me. 3 days later, I created a dating profile. Not a grainy, casual photo like the ones I'd seen him take on vacation. No, mine was curated. Elegant, confident, magnetic. I chose a photo from a friend's wedding. Sleek black dress, my hair in loose waves, red lipstick that made me look like I belonged on the cover of a magazine. The messages started almost instantly. Some were crude and got deleted. Others were polite but dull. But a few stood out. One in particular. Liam, 37, investment banker, world traveler, knew the best restaurants in the city and had no problem saying, "You deserve to be spoiled." We chatted for hours over the next 2 days. He didn't just ask what I liked. He paid attention. When I mentioned I loved Italian food, he sent a reservation confirmation for the best place in town. No questions asked. Going out tonight? James asked casually as I applied mascara in the mirror. Mm-hmm, I said, carefully running the brush over my lashes. Dinner with someone I met. He didn't look threatened, not yet. Well, have fun. I turned to him, leaning on the doorframe. I will. And James? Yeah? Just remember, you wanted this. Tell me in the comments, would you ever agree to an open marriage if your partner asked, or would you shut it down immediately? That night, as Liam's driver opened the car door for me, I realized I wasn't just agreeing to this arrangement anymore. I was enjoying it, and that was going to terrify James. The night air had that crisp, early spring bite that makes you want to wrap yourself in something warm. Instead, I wrapped myself in confidence. My black silk dress clung in all the right places, my heels clicking against the driveway as Liam's driver, stepped out to open the back door of a sleek black sedan. Ms. Evans, he said with a polite nod. I slid into the leather seat, my perfume mingling with the faint scent of cologne and champagne. Liam was already there, dressed in a tailored charcoal suit, the kind of fit you only get when someone knows your measurements by heart. Clara, he said, his voice smooth and warm, you look perfect. I smiled, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. Thank you, and you don't look so bad yourself. We drove to La Fenice, the most exclusive Italian restaurant in the city, the one James always said was too expensive for a regular night out. But here I was on a Tuesday, sipping a glass of Amarone while Liam ordered without even glancing at the prices. The conversation was easy, flirtatious. Liam wasn't rushing to impress me with flashy stories. He was making me feel like I was the only person in the room. And when dessert came, he slid a small, velvet box across the table. Inside was a delicate gold bracelet, thin and understated, but undeniably expensive. For you, he said simply. Every woman deserves to feel treasured. When I came home that night, James was sitting on the couch, TV on, but eyes not really watching. He glanced up, his gaze flicking to the bracelet before he could hide it. Nice night? He asked, too casually. It was lovely, I said, kicking off my heels. Liam's charming, knows how to treat a woman. He tried to laugh it off. So, you're just going to wear gifts from other men now? I tilted my head. Isn't that the point of an open marriage? Experiencing things we don't get at home? His jaw tightened. That's not... He stopped himself, looking away. Never mind. But it was too late. I saw the flicker of something in his eyes, the first crack in his confidence. The next day, while he was working late, I decided to see what his open marriage looked like. He'd been on a couple of coffee dates, nothing major. But here's the thing about men like James. They assume they'll be the prize in this game. They don't expect competition. That night, I found him scrolling through his phone in bed. I slid under the covers, my phone lighting up with a text from Liam. Friday. Paris. Say yes. James noticed. Paris? I smiled at my screen. Like, Paris, France? Yes. He's flying me out for the weekend. His laugh was short, almost scoffing. That's insane. I shrugged. Maybe. But you wanted adventure, remember? Be honest. If someone offered to fly you to another country just for dinner, would you go? Tell me in the comments. That night, James lay awake longer than usual. I could feel the tension radiating off him. He'd asked for this, begged for it. But he was starting to see that the game was far easier for me to win. Paris was more than just a trip. It was the moment James realized he wasn't in control anymore, and that terrified him. The flight to Paris was nothing like I'd ever experienced with James. First class. A champagne flute in my hand before I even fastened my seatbelt. Liam leaned back beside me, his arm resting casually along the seat, like this was the most natural thing in the world. You've been before? He asked, glancing at me. Once, I said. With my husband. It was different. Different how? I smiled faintly. We stayed in a budget hotel and split appetizers. Liam's brow lifted just slightly. Then let's make this trip the opposite of that. And he did. We stayed at the Ritz, ate at Le Jules Verne in the Eiffel Tower, walked along the Seine at midnight while a light drizzle turned the city into a movie scene. He didn't rush me, didn't check his phone every 5 minutes, didn't make me feel like I was too much for wanting to enjoy the moment. 2 days later, James was waiting in the living room when I came home, suitcase still in hand. He didn't even pretend to be casual this time. So, he said, arms crossed. How was Paris? Incredible, I answered honestly, setting my bag down. We had dinner overlooking the city. He surprised me with tickets to a ballet. Oh, and I held up my wrist where a Cartier watch gleamed under the light. This. His eyes narrowed. That's a lot, don't you think? For what? I asked, walking toward the kitchen. For a man to show someone they matter? Clara, it's different. Gifts, trips. That's not what we agreed on. I turned back to him, leaning on the counter. We agreed on freedom, and you're upset because I'm better at using mine than you are. That hit him. He didn't say anything, just stared at me like I'd spoken a language he couldn't understand. Later that night, he tried to be affectionate. An arm around my waist in the kitchen, a kiss on the side of my neck. It felt different. Desperate. You know, I said softly, turning to face him. If the roles were reversed, if I was the one struggling to find someone while you were flying across the world, I'd be happy for you. He scoffed. You would not. Then why should I believe you'd be happy for me? That's the thing about reverse psychology. It forces people to see their own hypocrisy. And right now, James was choking on his. Do you think James wanted an open marriage because he thought he would have all the fun? Drop a broken heart emoji if you think he underestimated Clara. Later that week, James started checking in more. What are you doing tonight? Who are you seeing? How late will you be? He disguised it as curiosity, but it was control creeping back in, and I let him squirm, because I knew The more he saw me thriving, the less he'd want the thing he swore he needed. The breaking point was coming, and when it arrived, it wouldn't be a slow crack. It would be an explosion. It started on a Wednesday night, the kind where the sky is an inky blue and the house feels too quiet. I was on the couch scrolling through my phone when Liam's name lit up my screen. Liam. Weekend in Capri? I'll handle everything. Before I could even type a reply, James walked in from the garage, dropping his keys a little too hard on the table. "Who's that?" he asked, nodding toward my phone. "Liam," I said without flinching. "He wants to take me to Capri." His eyebrows shot up. Capri. As in, Italy? Yes. You know, freedom, adventure, all the things you said you wanted for us. He stood there for a moment, jaw tight, and then dropped the mask. "This needs to stop, Clara." I put my phone down slowly. What needs to stop? All of this. The trips. The gifts. The... whatever it is you and Liam are doing. You mean the open marriage you asked for? He ran a hand through his hair, pacing now. It's different when you're being spoiled like that. It's not the same as just dating. I leaned back against the cushions, letting my voice go calm, the kind of calm that makes people nervous. So, let me get this straight. You wanted the right to see other women, but now you're upset because I'm with someone who treats me better than you do? That's not fair, he shot back. Isn't it? I asked, tilting my head. If you were flying off to Italy with some stunning model, do you think I'd get to tell you to stop? Or would you tell me to respect the arrangement? He hesitated. That pause was my win. You don't understand, he said finally, softer now. I didn't think it would feel like this. I almost laughed. What did you think it would feel like, James? That you'd be the only one anyone wanted? That I'd sit here, waiting for you to come home from your adventures while I played the good little wife? His eyes darted away. He didn't have an answer. 2 days later, I went to dinner with Liam. Not because I wanted to rub it in James's face, though I won't lie, part of me enjoyed the thought, but because I genuinely wanted to. When I came home, James was in bed, pretending to be asleep, but I saw the light from his phone vanish the moment I walked in. "Good night," I said softly, closing the bedroom door behind me. Have you ever had someone set rules for you, only to try to change them the moment they realized you were winning? Tell me your story in the comments. The shift. Over the next week, James tried different tactics. He'd call me during the day, just to say hi. He'd plan sudden date nights. He even suggested we take a weekend trip together. The first time in years he'd initiated something like that. It was almost sweet, if it hadn't been born from jealousy. Then came the night he made his final move. And it wasn't a request. It was an ultimatum. It was Friday evening when James finally snapped. I'd just finished getting ready for dinner with Liam. Deep emerald dress, hair swept to one side, heels that made me feel 6 feet tall. James stood in the doorway to the bedroom, watching me like he was trying to memorize every detail. Or maybe, trying to stop me. "We need to talk," he said, his tone low and clipped. I set my earring in place. "Go ahead." He didn't move closer. "I can't do this anymore, Clara." I turned, meeting his eyes in the mirror. "Do what?" "This," he gestured between us. "The open marriage. It's over. I want it to stop." I paused, letting the silence stretch. "For both of us?" "Yes," he said quickly. "For both of us. No more. Anyone else. Just us." I smiled faintly, and that smile seemed to bother him more than if I'd argued. "So, you've decided you can't handle it anymore," I said, crossing my arms. "And now you want me to give up the freedom you insisted we both have." "It's not about control," he insisted. "It's about realizing what really matters." I stepped closer, my voice soft but cutting. James, imagine this. If you were the one being flown to Paris, given gifts, treated like royalty, and I told you to stop, would you smile and agree, or would you call me insecure and controlling? His mouth opened, then closed. Be honest, I pressed. If you'd been the one winning this little game, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. He ran a hand through his hair, looking frustrated. I just want things back the way they were. I tilted my head. Back when you were bored? When you thought our marriage needed excitement from other people? That's what you want again? He flinched. You didn't think this through, I said gently. You didn't imagine I'd be wanted, desired, spoiled. You thought I'd always be the safe option while you got to be the adventurous one. His voice dropped to almost a whisper. I don't like feeling replaced. I leaned in, close enough that my perfume wrapped around him. Then maybe you should have thought about that before you opened the door. Do you think Clara should end things completely, or agree to close the marriage on her terms? Comment your take below. That night, I still went to dinner with Liam. James didn't stop me. He just sat at the kitchen table, silent, as I walked out the door. But something in his eyes told me, this wasn't over. The next move he made wasn't to convince me. It was to compete with me. It started with small changes. James, who usually wore the same 3 button-down shirts on rotation, suddenly had a new wardrobe. Crisp shirts, expensive cologne, a haircut that actually looked intentional. Then came the late nights. Working late, he'd say, avoiding my eyes as he grabbed his keys. I didn't call him out, I didn't even ask who he was with, and that silence? That's what drove him crazy. One Thursday night, he came home smelling faintly of whiskey and someone else's perfume. He dropped his jacket over the back of the chair and glanced at me, almost smug. Met someone? He said casually. We're going to dinner this weekend. That's nice, I replied, sipping my tea. He blinked. That's it? No reaction? I set my cup down. James, you asked for this. If you're finally having fun, good for you. It was reverse psychology at its sweetest, giving him permission when what he really wanted was a fight. The weekend came, and he left for his date, wearing a suit and carrying the cologne cloud like a badge of honor. He came home less than 2 hours later. Back already? I asked from the couch, not looking up from my book. He dropped into the armchair with a groan. She left. I raised an eyebrow. Left? Halfway through dinner, said I was distracted. He looked away, embarrassed. I guess I talked about you too much. I bit back a smile. That happens when you still love someone, James. After that, his dates became more frequent and shorter. One lasted 45 minutes. Another ended before drinks even arrived. And with each failed attempt, I could feel his frustration mounting. Because he wasn't competing with some random guy. He was competing with Liam. Liam, who sent me flowers just because. Liam, who booked surprise getaways. Liam, who never once made me feel like I had to earn affection. James couldn't outplay him, and deep down, he knew it. Drop a diamond emoji in the comments if you think James's jealousy was less about love and more about losing control. The night before Liam was set to take me to Santorini, James finally said it. Clara, I can't do this anymore. Not because I don't want you to be happy, but because I can't stand the thought of someone else giving you more than I can. That was the moment I realized. This wasn't about saving the marriage anymore. It was about choosing myself. The morning of my Santorini trip, the house was quiet. Too quiet. I found James in the kitchen, sitting at the table with a mug of coffee that had gone cold. You're really going, he said, not looking at me. Yes, I replied, sliding my passport into my bag. He finally lifted his eyes. I meant what I said last night. I can't do this anymore. Not just the open marriage, the distance, the competition, all of it. I took a deep breath, leaning against the counter. James, you started this. You said our marriage needed excitement. You wanted freedom. I gave you exactly what you asked for. I didn't think it would be like this, he said quietly. I don't know. I thought it would make us stronger. But it's tearing me apart. I softened my tone, not out of pity, but because the truth didn't need to be shouted. Do you know why it's tearing you apart? Because you thought you'd be the one winning. You never imagined I'd be wanted, loved, spoiled. And now you can't unsee it. He swallowed hard. I just want you back. I stepped closer, my hand brushing his briefly. A goodbye disguised as a gesture of comfort. James, the problem isn't that you lost me to someone else. The problem is that you lost me the moment you asked for someone else. He looked at me like he wanted to argue, but no words came. I'm going to Santorini, I said, lifting my bag. When I get back, I'll send someone to collect the rest of my things. The taxi was waiting. As I slid into the back seat, I glanced up at the bedroom window. James was there, watching me leave. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. Tell me in the comments, would you have stayed or would you have walked away too? As the plane took off, I realized something important. Sometimes, the person you love most will hand you the key to your own freedom, disguised as a bad idea. James thought an open marriage would give him more. But in the end, it gave me more than I'd ever imagined. More confidence, more joy, more love. Even if it wasn't from him. And the best part? I didn't just survive his mistake. I built a better life because of it.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.